I can't recall the last time I walked out of a theater before the credits rolled, but I did just that while attempting to watch a Best Picture nominated film. But then, who cares who the Oscar voters think is the best picture for any given year? They hardly ever get it right, and as we know, there's a lot of politics at play, and sometimes they do, but the biggest snub for me was hardly surprising. Yet when I sat in the theater today thinking, how is this the Best Picture nominee and that wasn't? Both films an homage to motion pictures, one beyond description, the other laughably trite. It just made me angry and feel a little crazy. So am I the one who got it wrong, or is Babylon truly a misunderstood masterpiece? The problem is, normally when I leave a theater after its completion, I have a fairly concrete understanding of how technically successful a film was at both creating a dynamically paced story while fulfilling its explicit or implicit emotional intent. As in, I know if the film was good roughly within the multifaceted dimensions of filmmaking, and I know how to feel. Or I can identify my feelings and can know if I can attribute that to the filmmaker's intentions, where some films just make me mad and walk out, not as the director intended. I say this knowing I have one outstanding film to watch from this year's best that is probably outstanding. However, me giving you a top 10 list of this year's films from the past year is mostly meaningless, except as anchor points or contextual references to compare against. So for example, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I went into the theater as biased as I was naive because I thought Everything Everywhere All at Once prior to watching it was going to be my film of the year, just from the hype. And it wasn't, nor do I think it was as great as it's being portrayed. However, and I will refer back to the specific reasons why in a minute, but I'd still put it in my top 10 for, and just like what Hollywood Foreign Press does and the Academy, for political reasons. As in, I want the Daniels to keep making more films. I want studios to keep giving them more money. And I'm sincerely rooting for them to make more wild films and to make better films and to learn from their mistakes and to cut like 45 minutes from a film if it doesn't work. Even if you and your fellow Daniel think it's funny or risque, just stop being cute and cut the fat. And that's why I'm confused again by the Best Picture nominees, but I shouldn't be. So before I assuage you to see the best film you probably won't see because the Academy deemed it unworthy, let me list a few that did, by pure merit, make it to my best films of the year. So this was my year of Colin Farrell, who had 3 films in my top 10. Of course, there's Banshees of Inisherin, The Batman, which is crazy, it had no real nominations, especially in cinematography, and After Yang, which due to the flexible release date may or may not have qualified, but what a year he had. 3 completely different films and 3 completely different performances. He is worthy of every ounce of accolades here. Now, another big snub was The Northman. Now, I don't know what Eggers has to do to convince the Academy that he belongs shoulder to shoulder with the rest, but this film was, and it's not perfect, but it was a gem. And it's a much more commercially friendly film for him. You would have thought perfect for the Academy. So speaking of, I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Top Gun Maverick, as it's a corny commercial film, but it was an enthralling, nostalgic cinematic experience. So for that, I am fine with its nomination. Similarly as I am with Avatar: Way of the Water. Far from perfect, but I saw both movies twice in the theater, so that should be worth something. Next, snubs, which I won't dive into why, and which I can also sort of understand, was Decision to Leave and then Nope. But since we're on horror, why not Barbarian? Because it was such an original film that is far better than, for example, Elvis. Now, I did a whole review on the train wreck of Elvis, and I also said in that review, I am a fan of Baz, but not this time. And I also said Austin Butler deserves whatever trophies you want to send him. I am good on that. But for some reason, biopics of musicians do really well for the Academy. Like Rami Malek was great, yet Bohemian Rhapsody was somehow worse than Elvis. Now, I'm happy to see Tar and Triangle of Sadness on the list, but they were still, for me, not as great as... Now, I shouldn't be surprised with the PR campaigns and the politics of Hollywood swaying voters to pick certain performances and films, especially films that both critique Hollywood as well as glorify it. And it is also true that we are in an era where how we watch films is completely shifting, be it on our phone or in our living room, and how much content we consume as compared to cinema we see is exponentially evolving. The tectonic cracks are hard to ignore. And now that filmmaking is being democratized, so a person like me could theoretically shoot a film with this prosumer camera that could stream on Netflix or get shown in the theaters is just nuts. Now everybody can cook or shoot. And we haven't seen these multi-dimensional shifts since movies became talkies.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
So for me, a movie that could stand feet planted into these headwinds and deliver a true motion picture experience that no content creator could make, with two of the biggest names alive, one of which is just acting her face off better than any actor this year, period. Shot on grand sets, the scale we haven't seen since the golden age of cinema, directed with such grandiose confidence that it's hardly imaginable how it was completed. And then, too, with creative intent to pull the rug out on the audience, to frustrate us, confuse us, depress us, and then flip it again and give us pure gratitude of the effect cinema has had on all of us. Not just one fableman, but on us all over the years, the last 100 years, in a matter of moments, in a Kubrick second, and bam, the film ends. And I still don't even know where to begin. And that tackles how Hollywood became what it is today, a place on the precipice of a complete overhaul that's as dirty and sinister as we outsiders presume, and yet it's as important as it ever has been. Damien Chazelle delivered a masterpiece of a movie, and if you see it, you know he gives you specifically a perfect, objectively perfect hour and 45-minute film, with an opening scene, though, that does foreshadow the end, and then it gives you, dares you with another 40 minutes to not leave the theater, but it does so deliberately. It's the filmmaker's intent to show you how cinema has changed, is changing, and through the course of the film can change us. But you can't cut this fat. You can't remove this portion of the film. This is in fact the film's nerve endings. We need these. So this is not a review or an in-depth plot analysis, as I don't want to spoil anything more than I already have. So this is just a plea to anybody listening to go watch Babylon until the end. Go love the spectacle that is Babylon. Go be uncomfortable. Go be perplexed. Just go to the Cineplex. Don't see snippets of it on TikTok or YouTube or, well, just go see it in a theater while you still can, and then come back and tell me, is it a masterpiece or was the Academy right? Was I just misunderstood? Okay, thank you for your time and attention. I've got a bunch more of these on the way. Thank you, guys.